Thanks for joining us on Over My Dead Body, the podcast hosted by Nicola Reeder and Carl Tate that aims to bust those myths about all things funerals and answer the questions you never dared ask. So stick in your earbuds, listen, and then send us your questions for the things we still haven't answered for you. Happy listening. So welcome back to episode 1 of series 2 of Over My Dead Body. Oh my God, we have missed this. We are so excited to be back. Carl, how are you doing?
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's great to be back. It's been nice to have a bit of a break, but it's always good just to get back in and start record some more episodes. Definitely.
Brilliant. So for this episode, we're just going to ease in quite gently to series 2. We're going to share a little bit about what we've been up to over the last few weeks, talk about what we have coming up on future episodes in this series, and just get you used to listening to us again about all things busting myths for death, dying, and funeral planning. So, Carl, what have you been up to the last few weeks?
So, it's been a bit of an odd one for me. I have a bit of an up and down, really. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of an episode, and long story short, ended up in hospital with atrial fibrillation. So I have an irregular heartbeat, but I've been told just to carry on, get on with things. They've given me some beta blockers, and I'm carrying on as normal as such. So yeah, all good, all good.
So we are delighted to hear that it's nothing too serious, scary as it was. Hopefully something that's fairly easily controllable. And I believe the biggest change that you've had to make so far is giving up your beloved Pop Tarts for breakfast.
Yeah, that's been a really big change. So the Pop Tarts have gone and the fresh orange is in. So yeah, that's one change.
Well, it's all about sacrifice to keep you alive. So it's well worth it.
Yeah. And how's things with you, Nicola?
Yeah, good, thank you. Much less dramatic than they have been for yourself. But yeah, it's been quite quiet in the funeral industry. I think everyone you speak to, we tend to get these little seasonal periods where there's a little bit of a lull. And that happens around kind of September, October time. So it's a great time to regroup, to look at what you've been doing, to do a bit of research around what you might want to say in a service, what other celebrants are doing, get together with some of my fellow celebrants. We've had a couple of catch-ups, and that's been good. And some big birthday parties for friends and family in between as well. So it's been great.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I know I speak, as most funeral directors, it's sort of feast or famine really in the industry, and it has been a little bit quiet for us. Again, you sort of just take stock, get back to your paperwork that you've maybe missed, and then obviously the next funerals then start rolling in again. It's the way it works.
It is, and it's always really strange because, so yeah, whilst Carl and I will talk about it being a little bit quieter, as will crematoriums, other funeral directors, other celebrants, what it does mean, and that's absolutely lovely, is that families aren't losing their loved ones, and there's just less grief and less sadness around. So we don't say that lightly. We do know that means that people aren't grieving, and that's a brilliant thing. So Carl, looking back over series 1, those 10 episodes we did, 11 actually, including the live one, any highlights for you, anything that sticks out?
So yeah, I mean, there's lots of highlights for me. Personally, one of the things for me is just sort of growing with confidence, sitting in front of a microphone and talking about things, because ordinarily it's usually in front of families rather than in front of a microphone and recording episodes. So that's a big plus for me, just as a personal note. But also our live episodes that we did at the crematorium, or well, the one I did anyway, was a real highlight for me. I don't know about you. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, very much the same, kind of finding our voices, growing into what we wanted to talk about, having a bit of a laugh towards the end of the series, really finding where we could push the humour. And but actually one of the most powerful things is when you go and visit families and they say, oh yeah, I listened to an episode before you arrived and it really helped because I'd got a bit of family conflict, or I didn't know where to start with writing a eulogy. And just knowing that we'd made it less scary, the whole process, is just brilliant.
I agree, and it's lovely to say, oh, Ossie, you're the guy on Over My Dead Body. And it is nice to know that this whole process, this whole thing, that what we're doing is making a real difference, and that's something that we should both be proud of, because I genuinely love it.
And we're nearly at 2,000 downloads now. So,
incredible. Unbelievable.
When we started, we would have been happy with a few hundred.
It's absolutely phenomenal that people are picking this up and running with it, and really looking forward to season 2.
And so season 2, we did promise you some more guest speakers. So what are some of the topics that you're thinking we're going to start to address in series 2?
So for me, series 1 was all about things that we can answer, that I know personally and you know, so we've got the confidence to give the listeners sort of answers to what we know. And I think for me, series 2, is that we'll get people in who know more about their own personal side of things, so crematorium managers or end of life carers and things like that, and it's just digging deeper into the whole realms of death, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting to touch on some of those questions that we get asked about in our meetings, but perhaps we can't answer and have to pass our families on to somebody else. So just as Carl said, we're going to have death doulas. If you're not sure what they are, go and Google them. Probably somebody talking about admin and all of the paperwork and the detail and it comes around, or deathmin, as people are sometimes calling it. Death educators, bereavement counsellors, and then we may have something a little special coming up for you just before Christmas. We know it's a really difficult time. It's everywhere in the shops, on the television at the moment, and it can be really, really hard for people grieving. So we're going to do something towards the end of the series that we hope will help you just ease into the season a little bit more gently.
So we're literally recording this at the beginning of November and we're talking Christmas. So, I mean, for me, I love Christmas. Genuinely, I do. Heart Radio's now got Heart Christmas. So that's blaring away in my car. But I love Christmas. But as you say, it is a really difficult time for a lot of people across the world because it's such a difficult period. Certainly, even the first of things, as we've said before, the first Christmases and things. But, even losing somebody at Christmas and going through it all, really, really difficult.
And equally, we know there'll be some of you going into Christmas now who are thinking, I'm not sure if my loved one will actually still be with us at Christmas time. So stick with us and we'll try and help ease you over the next few weeks as well.
So in the run up to Christmas, there are a lot of memorial services that funeral directors put on, churches put on, and independent celebrants do. And they are a real comfort to some families. Some people, of course, who've lost their loved ones, but also people who are going through this stages of possibly losing someone. And they do help, they really do.
And just before we even get to Christmas, some of you might be aware that the first week in December is National Grief Awareness Week. So that's just a time where there are lots of events, lots of publicity. You might see a lot on TV, the people just talking about how important grieving is in your journey through loss, and lots of ways for you to be part of that if you feel you need to, and actually just a way to help us all be kinder to each other and to people who are grieving. And we are planning lots of events during that week with different councils, different crematoriums, different venues, to try and just help people who are grieving to be able to find a safe space to talk about grief and about managing their grief, and for us to help signpost you in the right direction. So just stay tuned and we will bring you more details of our activity over National Grief Awareness Week over the coming episode.
I think another highlight for me as well, Nicola, is all of the questions that we were getting asked. So, I started out this podcast and I was thinking, are we really going to get people genuinely messaging in or texting questions, people in the street and such? But it has happened. And I'm genuinely really looking forward to more questions and really answering what people want to know.
And on that very topic, Carl, well said, we had a question come in while we were off air, which was directly to me, which you can ask me in a minute. Oh, sorry, I will answer in a minute. But I'm going to ask it you from my perspective. Is there anything that you can think of that you would like celebrants or ministers or officiants to do differently that would help you do your job better or easier?
Wow, so that's a great start to series 2. I think the one thing for me is that the end result is always is the same. So always we end up at the funeral service, but it's how we get there is the most important thing. And a lot of celebrants, vicars, priests, you name them, all have different ways of working, as do funeral directors. And I think when a new celebrant, new minister comes onto the scene, it's always good just to have those initial first meetings of introductions and how do they work, and just ask them how they put services together, or how they would like the workings, how would they like things to start and finish. And I think the more conversations you have, the more understanding you get with. So the way me and you work together isn't the same as how I work with other priests and vicars, because they just have different workings, and we're all adaptable. We can all adapt to different working environments and situations. And I think another important part to that is to revisit those conversations. Go back to them, whether it's 6 months, a year. Just have that conversation. Have you tried? Are you doing anything differently? Is there anything I can do for you? And I think that helps us work together to make the service just that extra special.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really important point about keeping talking, because I know all of the funeral directors, I work with quite a wide scope of people who like to do the ordering of the music themselves, the designing of order of service sheets, the kind of nuts and bolts of a service. There are other funeral directors who absolutely don't want to touch that and want me to do it all for them. I'm not particularly precious either way. I'll do whatever helped you the most. So it is all just about understanding what works best for you.
There's a whole element of trust. It's all trust. And, you've got to have that trust in your celebrant. You've got to have the trust in the minister. Because if you don't, then unfortunately, there's lots of things that potentially could go wrong.
Yeah, and I always tend to think of a funeral service a little bit like a relay race. From the very moment you lose your loved one through to the point we walk out of the crematorium or the church, you're handing that baton over to lots of different people. And it's just making that baton pass as smoothly as possible, so you all know what's been agreed, you know what your responsibilities are, you know how you're going to deliver them. And underpinning all of that is because that's what the family want, and we know we've got that right. So it's that kind of coordination and collaboration all together.
That's such a great analogy. I love that, and it is 100% right.
You can have that one for free.
I'll take that.
When I hear you quoting that in future meetings, that's a Nicola Reader.
Nicola Reader, that's it. We'll take that.
So that question came about because when I was at one of my celebrant catch-ups, having a chat with some of my colleagues, they asked me a question that said, is there anything that you would like funeral directors to do differently that would make your job easier? So I'm going to caveat that with, I think all of the funeral directors I work with do a brilliant job. Of course, I'm going to say that.
That's a great start. That's a great start to the question. Answer.
So that goes without saying. And they're equally brilliant at selecting the right celebrant for the right family, knowing what that family needs in terms of support and guidance, strength, gentleness, etc. But there is one really, really specific thing that if there are any FDs listening, it's this point about saying to families, just pick 3 songs, because it might not be 3 songs. It might be no song because your loved one hated music. It might be 20 songs and no talk because your loved one absolutely adored music. And it could possibly be everything in between. So one of the most frequent confusions that I think arises sometimes in family meetings that I have to then try and unpick is actually that's not set in stone. What is it you want to achieve with this service? What's your vision? What feels right for your loved one? And then we build the service around that. We don't build a service around 3 songs. We build it around what you're trying to achieve. But it's just a very common misconception I come across with families that it's 3 songs and that's it.
I mean, yeah, I would agree. I mean, historically going back, yes, you would just pick 3 songs. You'd have your opening music, your reflection music or a hymn, and then your closing music. And I think it's also with the way that the times are changing now. And it's not just, right, you've got to come into a piece of music, sit down, listen to a piece, then you leave to a piece. There's all, as you've mentioned, there's all the variations of whether we don't have any music at all. Some families leave it up to funeral directors to pick the tunes, and even the celebrants. And I think that sometimes works well because the families don't have a clue. But once the ministers, celebrants scratch the surface and go deeper into who that person is, the music selections become so much more easier and relatable to who that person was. So, yeah, it's times are changing, definitely.
And it comes back to that point of trust, which I can totally and utterly understand. If you're a funeral director and you know that you've got to fit a service within half an hour for lots of reasons, actually that 3 songs is a good structure that means you can probably fit everything else in the time. And it's a really big risk to say, you can have as much music as you want and trust that your celebrant is going to know how we can fit all that together and what you want to say and bring it in on time. But I would just say to funeral directors, that's what we're good at. Hopefully that's what we are trained on, that we gain our experience in. So let us be creative and hopefully feel like you can trust us to be able to not be making services of an hour and a half.
Of course, yeah, and also as a funeral director, responding to that, sometimes I'll sit with families and they'll say, "Well, how many pieces of music can we have?" So you can have as many as you like,
Yeah.
but that unfortunately reduces the time that we get to speak about your loved ones. So it's a fine balance.
Yeah.
And again, it's not up to a funeral director to decide how many pieces of music. It's just there to give you. We're just there to give advice and guide people. But ultimately, it really rests with the family and their choice. And that, again, we always revert back to this choice and conversations. And that's what these podcasts are all about.
And you must get, when somebody says to you, "So how much music can we have?" And you might respond to that with, "Well, you can have as much as you want." You must get that comment then. "No, but roughly, how many do you think?"
Yeah. What do you think? Or what do you think of this? What do you think of that piece of music? Genuinely, I've listened to every single piece of music you'd ever think of. There's such an eclectic mix with, from dance music to folk music. We've had everything. God, crikey, there's that much. The only thing that we were ever refused, genuinely we were refused at a crematorium, was a Roy Chubby Brown song, which is fair enough. That's what the crematorium put the foot down and said, "I'm sorry, we can't do that."
I had a quite interesting one the other week where someone had picked a song by Puff Daddy, the now disgraced Puff Daddy. Mm-hmm. And it was really difficult because I think the family was a little bit split over whether that was the right thing to do or not. And it's like, well, if that was their favourite song, we should play it. That's not your loved one's fault, but there's been some criminal proceedings in the back. So sometimes that can be really difficult, with tracks where it has been somebody who was in favour but has fallen from, Gary Glitter would be in that same camp, I guess, those kind of songs. So It can be really tough making your mind up.
It can be, yes. And the thing is with crematoriums, it's always good you can use the playlist. You put a playlist together through their music system. But in church, it's completely different. Yeah. They don't have these systems. So inevitably, funeral directors put them on the phone. So I could look at my Spotify now and have a look, and I'd guarantee there will be playlists on there with, certain names on there or certain churches for certain services. And you just think, crikey, I need to delete those because what an odd... If anyone was to ever look at it and think, God, that's a bit of an odd playlist to have.
It's quite funny when you get your Spotify review of the year and it brings up some things that you think, oh my God, I've done 73 hours of classical music. I don't remember listening to any of that. And it's trawling through the classical track to find the right music for people. So that was just an interesting question that I thought came up. One of the other things that has been quite a frequent conversation I've had recently, not just off the podcast, but it came up at those live events too, was the whole thing around direct cremations again. And if you want to know what they are, how they all work, what our thoughts are on them, there is an episode, I think it's episode 4 back in season 1, where you can listen to your heart's content about what they are. But actually the point that's cropped up in the last couple of weeks is me being asked to do more and more memorial services. So where families, for whatever reason, have had a direct cremation some time ago, 4 or 5 months ago, but just feeling like they're not moving forward, feeling like they're not able to kind of let go and make the move forward that they need to in their own lives because they never said goodbye. And could we actually just put something together where they felt like they had a chance to do that? And I've done some gorgeous services recently in hospices or in working men's clubs with the ashes of their loved one there, with people speaking, with some music, with a period of reflection, very similar to how we'd put a funeral service together. And people have got real comfort from that, but have felt quite guilty about have they gone against their loved one's wishes. So I just wanted to kind of revisit that point and just say, if your loved one did want a direct cremation, that's okay, but don't feel like you can't do anything either because you're really important in that whole journey as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, Nicola, because the road of grief or grief itself is just such a minefield. And as we've said in the beginning, as I always say in the beginning of every arrangement, is genuinely no right and wrong answers to any funerals. And I think that people, certainly in this area, will say, oh, just throw us in a bin bag, or throw us in the skip, or
throw us in the swale.
Throw us in the swale. I mean, crikey, the amount of bodies should be in that swale is unbelievable. But it, for me, the grief is a real difficult thing. And when people are choosing to plan their own funerals, yes, they are doing it because they get what they're wanting, but they also need to be mindful of everybody that's left behind as well, because sometimes it's just that snap decision of, right, well, it'll save everybody money. sometimes, yes, is true in some cases, but that doesn't mean to say it's always the right answer. And people have to be very careful when they are choosing certain funeral plans or what they're wanting to do, because it is difficult, because families really have to think about the knock-on effect it's going to have with the rest of the family and the loved ones that are left behind.
And there's a real balance between cost and value. So I know that many families, or many people who choose a direct cremation, absolutely do it with the best of intentions, thinking I'm saving my family hassle and stress and money. But actually, what are you sacrificing? What are you not helping with in terms of their grieving journey? What are they really, and that shock of finding out, that's what Dad wanted, that's all we get. And if it is one of the TV advertised companies, you don't even know when that's going to be, where it's going to be. You can't go stand in the car park much. You can't see your loved one again after they've left you. So those things are just really difficult. The shock of having to deal with some of those elements is actually what's been hurting people quite a lot. So yeah, we just wanted to raise that one as well and say that's something that is increasingly coming across the conversations I'm having. So if you do find yourself in that situation, give me a ring. I'm very happy to talk memorial services with you and how we put those together. But equally, if you're thinking about having a direct cremation, can we reiterate our early points and say, please go to your local funeral director, be that an independent or one of the high street chains, but just go to a person and have a conversation with them about what that actually entails.
It is, yeah. And, I'm not saying, as you said, we're not saying don't do it at all, because, that's what it's right for some families. But the more you talk about it, the more people learn about it and they understand it, at that point of death, when it does kick in these plans, you know exactly what you're getting and there's no surprises.
And it might feel like we're ramming home the points about direct cremation, but it is the question that comes up most frequently. It came up at both live days that we did. It's the ones people have grabbed us for questions about afterwards. So yeah, we just want to make sure you all have the information to have informative conversations and with your families, which is the most important thing. So earlier in the episode, we were talking about how much we loved those live events. They have been brilliant to get amongst you guys, actually get some feedback, hear what's cutting through and making a difference. So if there are any other crematorium managers or organisations or groups or anyone who feels like they would benefit from us popping along and seeing the human face of funerals, we would be delighted to come and talk to you. We've had some interest from WIs and Rotary groups, and ITV are interested possibly in coming and talking to us. So it's brilliant to just get the word out as much as possible. So don't think it just has to be at a crematorium. If you're a part of a interest group or anybody who you think might benefit from listening to us, from hearing us come in to talk, please do just get in touch with the show.
I mean, I must admit, when we turned up to Stockton, I wasn't really too sure on what to expect.
You weren't really on time either.
I wasn't on time. I was a bit late. I must admit, I got caught in a bit of traffic. So, of course, when we arrived and we walked into the room, there was a lot of apprehension around, and it just sort of, it was a little bit nervous for me at first. I'm not going to lie. It was a bit daunting. But once we sort of got into it and the questions started rolling, it was lovely to be able to be there.
It was great to have a conversation, because it can be sometimes a little one-sided when we're getting your questions in and we're just kind of answering them here. So it was great to be able to go into a little bit more detail. And when we were up at Weir Valley a few weeks later, unfortunately, Carl couldn't make it. He was entertaining some French dignitaries over lunch. So it was just me and producer Steve. But we got better biscuits and coffee than you did. So they looked after us really well up there. And again, had a really, really good conversation with people who were interested and frightened and about the whole topic, and just walked away feeling much more comfortable. And we know we're never going to get thousands of people at these events, because not everybody wants to come and spend their Saturday in a crematorium. But for the people who showed up, I think we made a real difference, and that's the most important thing, most important reason for doing. So hopefully that gives you a really gentle reintroduction to what Over My Dead Body is all about. If you're a new listener here on Series 2, thank you so much for joining us, and we can thoroughly recommend heading back to episode 1 of Series 1 and going through the whole of the rest of the episodes just to catch up on what you missed. We will be back next week with our first guest of the series. We'll not announce that just yet. We'll keep you waiting, and we'll announce that over the next week. But we are just so excited to be back on air and sharing all of our insights and thoughts and experiences and trying to help you guys just feel more comfortable about having these really, really important conversations. So that's a wrap for now. So Carl, goodbye for this week.
Yeah, goodbye. Thanks. It's great to be back, guys.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Just a reminder that whilst all of us work in the funeral industry, none of us are fully qualified grief counsellors. And therefore, if you've been affected by any of the issues that we've discussed today, we highly recommend that you seek out professional or medical support to help you with those conversations. Should you need any support, please do get in touch and we can hopefully signpost you in the right direction. But we can't offer those services ourselves. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode.